Hey everyone, welcome to the Automation Hours. My name is Grady. I'm a coach here at Keep. And to kick things off today, we're asking you guys this question. What are the consistent tasks you always do as part of your sales process? And we even got some examples here, like sending a proposal off your discovery call or always sending a thank you email. And you guys have done a great job jumping into the chat and adding some of the things that you're always doing. Joan says that she sends service contracts that require signatures from clients if they're on a monthly package. Ben scheduling calls and follow-up calls and scheduling appointments. Audra sends follow-up emails that are specific to the discussion. Sometimes they may even include a proposal. David develops rapport. He qualifies the prospect, provides information that will set him apart from his competitors, like offering to help them in what they do. Close, 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 he says. Uh, Shalene says she has a phone consultation, discusses pricing, gives them a quote. Maisie sends thank yous and welcomes. There's tons of here awesome things you guys are sharing. Now, one of the things I want to talk about in today's session that can be really helpful as we talk about how to automate some of these things is ways to get engaged in today's session. And so one of the ways that we can do that is with chat. You guys have already been doing a great job. One of the things I recommend is in that little toggle at the bottom where it says to, change that from all panelists to all panelists and all attendees, because there's some awesome things I see being shared in there, but only me and Renee can see them right now. And I can't read them all, unfortunately, because they just go all the way through, which I love. I love the engagement. But I am sure that Julia, you said you always send a proposal email and invoice email along with an email asking them to schedule coaching meetings with your coaching link. I am sure somebody in the session today didn't know that that was a cool thing to do. And now that they hear it, they go, ooh, that's a cool thing to do. I better do that. So as you guys share in chat, all panelists and all attendees, everyone gets to benefit from your insights and your expertise. We all get to help each other out in these sessions. And I'll always try my best to call out things that I think are really awesome inside the chat, but it scrolls by really fast. We've got a full house today. And so if I don't catch it in time, I want to make sure everyone else has a chance to see it. So make sure when you post, change that toggle from all panelists to all panelists and attendees. So again, so everyone in the session can see what you're sharing. Now, if there's something you actually want some specific help with, maybe you want to ask a question of me or mostly Renee. Renee's the smart one here today. I'm just helping. You can raise your hand. Now your cameras are all disabled. I can't see any of you. But inside of Zoom, there is a raise hand button. And when you click on it, a hand goes up next to your name on my second screen here. And I can give you access to unmute your microphone. And when we do, we can have a voice-to-voice conversation. I find that works really well to find resolution because typically we always need to ask some follow-up questions to make sure we truly understand what you're going for and give the best response possible that's unique to your situation. And so voice-to-voice helps us to do that. But I also appreciate not everyone loves being on a microphone. And so we've also got Q&A. Q&A is different than chat. Chat is a great place to type in thoughts, ideas, answer questions, but Q&A is where you can type in questions that you want to have answered by us. And whenever you post something in Q&A, unlike chat that streams by, Q&A just stacks all the questions in a row. And so I'll grab those questions and bring them into the content today, and we'll have a conversation about those things. And then I'll mark that question as completed or answered or addressed, and it slides off my list. So in that way, nothing gets forgotten. If there's something you need help with, raise that hand, put it in Q&A so we can make sure that we talk about it and help with it. The only caveat to that is that sometimes I get questions or hands raised like the hour mark, and we're super committed to getting you guys back to your business needs that are probably all on hold right now. And I want to make sure that I respect your time, because I know it's very tempting right now to have your email up and answering emails as you halfway listen. Like, we've found that usually is less effective for our attendees. And so as you focus in today and give us an hour, I promise we will keep it in an hour so you can get right back to all those things that have been waiting for you when we're done today. So let's just talk a little bit more about what we're trying to accomplish today when it comes to adding automation to our sales process. There's just so many things as we grow as a company, or as we grow in our list of contacts, that we need to do to follow up, especially if we've got a longer sales process. And a lot of times what happens is we miss stuff. Things slip through the cracks. You know, have you ever gotten an email or a phone call from someone that says, hey, did you send the proposal yet? I haven't seen it. And you've just got like egg on your face, and you've got to, like, get things back in place and go, oh, you didn't get it? Oh, let me go try and sending it again. Like, we want to help you avoid that kind of stuff, because if you can get the responses and your promises out quickly, you'll find that people will buy from you more often, because now you're a person of integrity. Like, if you don't keep your promises, essentially, when I'm giving you nothing, I'm kind of worried that when I give you money, it's going to be the same deal. And so in today's session, we're going to be talking about automation and how we can automate some of these steps in your sales process to help you to be more consistent and make it easier to close sales. And to help us with this, I've brought Renee Boudakian back to join us. Renee's had some amazing sessions actually with us in the past, all about sales pipeline. She is like the queen of automation, especially when it comes to closing sales. And so I am super happy. Oh, I'm sorry, she's the master. I just noticed that one. That's an update from last time. It wasn't queen before though. So she is the master of automation, and I'm super happy that she's here to join us. Renee, how are you?
Hi, Grady. Thanks for having me. I will take queen. I will take all the titles, no problem. And I actually smiled when you said that example of, oh, I'll send it to you again, because I I have a confession. I'm going to confess that I use that in school, where the teacher was like, where's your assignment? And I'd be like, oh, I submitted it. Meanwhile, I'd never submitted it. And I would go home and quickly write it and give it. So definitely we want to put ourselves, like Grady was talking about, in a position where our sales process doesn't feel like it's owning us. Like, we feel very much in control of our sales process, and the automation is really where it's going to help us to create some order to what can somewhat feel like a very chaotic part of running a business. Right? That this is a very, very important piece of running the business. So I can't wait to share with you today. I have packed today's session with a lot of value, so I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, awesome. I can't wait either. Yeah, I will tell you, I am speaking from experience in that example I shared. That was my life when I was a small business owner. It's why I'm no longer a small business owner. So let me go ahead, Renee. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours with me
Okay,
or
perfect.
us.
Oops, that's my extremely messy desktop. Um, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so today's agenda, what we're going to be talking about is firstly just an assisted sales process. Let's make sure we're all talking the same language when we're talking about sales. So we're just going to briefly touch on that. I'm going to talk about this concept of the 4 Ps. These are the 4 kind of categories of things that we're doing in business. And I'm also going to talk about metrics. I think the metrics is going to blow your mind, because I know it certainly blew my mind when I realized how much the average number of follow-ups that's needed first to make contact, and then once you've made contact, to actually close the sale. And of course, we're talking about using a sales pipeline. So I'm going to briefly talk on the sales pipeline stages. If you don't have your pipeline actually built out in the tools, that's no problem at all. Although we won't be building the pipeline today, we have a ton of resources that Grady and I will share with you to actually do that part. This is step 2. This is once you've built the pipeline, this is how you're going to automate it. So there's still tremendous value in being here, and of course, asking those questions. So we're going to go through the automation setup in both Keep Max Classic as well as Keep Max and Keep Pro. So both of those interfaces, and then of course some question and answer. So without further ado, I've got a lot to cover, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So
Nice.
when we talk about this assisted sales process, I just want to set the stage for that what I'm talking about here. Essentially, all of us that are in service-based businesses, we have an assisted sales process, and that is that process assisting where a human being, aka a salesperson, actually needs to contact, connect, follow up with a lead in order to actually get them to convert to a sale. So it's very much a manual, human, labor intensive process, right? Making sales. And you can consider it high touch because you're going to be doing things that are very personalized, doing things that when you are picking up the phone and calling someone, or you're writing a personal email, those are things that are going to have to be done one-offs, and they are not really at scale because they're always going to require the same amount of time for you to do them at minimum each and every time. And so this assisted sales process And when we're talking about sales pipelines, there's two humongous benefits to starting to use a sales pipeline. The first and foremost, let's just put automation aside for a second, because I think everybody jumps to that, and we're going to be getting into all the automation today, so don't worry. But let me tell you the first benefit. A lot of people don't have a pulse on where people are at in the buckets of their sales process, or the milestones of where they go from this is a brand new lead to I'm contacting this group of people to I'm actually got meetings set with this group of people. It might be in your calendar, but it's not in a place where you can go to a dashboard or have visibility to see where are the people in my sales process right now bucketed, so that you can do some projections, some revenue forecasting, or even just have peace of mind to know that you've got some things in the works, and so you don't feel like you're in scramble mode. So having visibility into your sales pipeline is super, super important. Now, you can turbocharge it, you can take it to the next level by putting automation behind those steps. So just to start, you can have a sales process that just gives you visibility, doesn't have automation connected to it. And when you're ready to do the automation step, that's where you can put the pieces in place in your tools, in the Keep tools, to say, when I move someone into this stage, I want this sequence of automation to start. And when I move someone into this stage, I want this sequence of automation to start. So really that's the step two, the layering on it. But because it's an assisted sales process, we're not going to completely remove ourselves. We're going to supplement ourselves with automation. You can consider automation to be your invisible assistant. We'll call her Sally or John, whoever your assistant you want them to be. And this automation is going to follow up with people and supplement the things that you're doing in addition to, so you can help get those touch points. You can help to have that personalized experience, and that you, as the human, not only does the things that really a human can only do. Like a human can only pick up the phone and have a conversation, but automation can send an email. Automation can send a text message. Automation can even be the tasks that reminds the human to do certain things. So that's where you're really working together with automation, but there's a tremendous value even before you talk about automating the process. Okay. So I mentioned these 4 Ps. What are these 4 Ps? So all businesses, you can consider that there's these 4 buckets that when you're doing an activity, you can consider what kind of P is this that I'm doing. And you see there's a line that I've got on the screen. And so that line represents revenue generating activity. So everything above the line is a revenue generating activity, and everything below the line is not a revenue generating activity. And so when it comes to the above the line, those revenue generating activity, really there's 2 buckets of things that we can say that we're doing in the business. Either we're doing production activities, that's our first P, which is sales, right? We're actually making the sales, we're actually working the leads, or we can be doing promotion. Those can be things like awareness. Those can be things like, for example, doing an automation hour where I can or I can create exposure to all the folks who I might be able to serve. And so those things, production is going to be immediate sales, whereas promotion is more of the long game, where you're creating that awareness and starting to bring people into your world so that you might have the opportunity to eventually move them into a production activity. But those are all relating to revenue generation. Then below the line, we have provision and pedestrian. Provision is the things that you've already been paid to do. So you're not being paid twice, but now you've got to deliver what you've sold. So there's a time where you're on the phone and you're making the sales and you've just got collected money in the bank. That's amazing. That's a production activity. But then you've got to walk away from the sales and go work 10, 20, 30, whatever that looks like for the service you offer, hours behind the scenes to deliver the thing that the customer has bought from you. And so you, as the business owner, you need to try and keep your time always above the revenue generating activity line. Now, how much of that time I'm going to share with you in just a second. And then pedestrian activities are those administrative things that have to happen in all businesses, but really you can outsource, or you can task that to insource to a team member, or outsource to a VA. But those are things that you shouldn't be tying your time up with necessarily, because they're not going to have the dollar for dollar time you're going to spend, you're not going to earn it back. So you really need to be keeping yourself above the line. And so how much of your time? 50%. If you think about what and you might say, Renee, I'm nowhere near 50% right now. I'm spending, maybe 10 or 20 or 30% in sales, in production in let's go back to, in production activities. And so if that's the case, then what I want you to be thinking about, and this webinar hopefully will just be the thought starter, is how can you start to move yourself above the line in the activities that you're doing? How can you start to outsource some of the things that you're doing? And certainly then you are able to focus more on your sales activities. And so part of it is creating the opportunity, the space, so that you can focus on production, your sales, and then using tools like Keep, you're really able to turbocharge it with the automation. So let's look at that. Grady, I see maybe a question. I just want to touch on it. Is there any questions?
Yeah, you bet. I was going to hold it until we got into the app, but let's just talk about it for a second. Mark asked, in Classic, is there a way to use opportunities to build a pipeline that also tracks dollars in the funnel?
Okay, so good. Sorry to jump ahead. Yes, we will hold that until we get into the app. I'm just going to let you moderate me, Grady. I'm not going to try to do it. So when we're talking about follow-up, so you're trying to follow up with a lead that you've never actually spoken to. Either they came in from a form, or maybe it's somebody that you, from your marketing initiatives, are actually reaching out to them as an outbound calling tactic. But the follow-up for a brand new lead, these are some of the numbers that I wanted to share with you. So the number 8 is something I've shared in past automation hours, where I've shared that the number of touch points or the number of follow-ups that you should be making is 8. And the reason I've shared that is because there is some stats behind the law of diminishing returns. So if you follow up with someone 8 times, then the 9th or the 10th or the 11th time, you start to kind of have this like residual slope, and it's the diminishing returns. But here's the thing that I want to append or update to that and clarify, is that the 8 attempts that I'm referring to are to a new lead. So you're trying to follow up with them to make contact, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean the entire sale is gonna be closed in 8 touch points, and I'm gonna dive into that in just a second. But the average of 8 attempts to reach a prospect is the number that I want you to think about. So if you're thinking about I'm reaching out once or twice, then you might be in that little parentheses that I put there, the average rep. And when I'm referring to us as business owners, if we are responsible for the revenue, then we are also the reps of our business, right? We're the sales representatives. And so if you are making 1 attempt or 2 attempts to follow up, then you're really falling into those averages. So we need to look at ways that we can actually increase that. Now, the multi-channel approach. So when you try and reach out to people in different ways, email, direct message, phone calls, it has a 28% higher success rate. And I know a lot of people might even find phone calls a little bit intimidating, but I want to share this with you to empower you to kind of think about doing things maybe a little bit differently, because truth be told, so many people are intimidated by this or don't want to do the follow-ups that it's our opportunities to lose. So we really need to look at how we can increase that. Now, I want to share with you some ways of what that 8 could look like, because I don't want to just leave you hanging and yeah, so like, this could be a simple 8 touch point cadence to try and reach someone. First, we can email them, then we can call them, then we can give them a follow-up call. If you do direct mail, which by the way, if you don't do direct mail, thinking about, even if it's literally a card that you write or something that you print off at your own printer at your house and then actually mail it to them. I always say this, Amazon has made direct mail and like the insurgence of mail, physical things, people look forward to having those things in their mailboxes. The things people don't like is the bills. The things that people don't like is when they know. But if it's a handwritten card or if it's a package, we look forward to opening those. And so you can think about, is there a way that you could potentially attract someone's attention? Now, provided you have their address. So that's an important piece.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's 2 good questions that just slid into the chat. The first one was from Maisie. She says, do you recommend using our business email instead of our personal?
No, I would recommend using still your business email here. Reason being is that if you start, you're still running a business at the end of the day. So you're trying to make contact, but you're trying to make contact with them representing a business opportunity. So I wouldn't recommend doing it on the personal side, particularly because now you're going to have to even be managing 2 different inboxes. So I would say keep it business. If it's a business intention, then keep it at that playing field of this is still a business opportunity that you're trying to close.
Awesome. And then the second one came from Ben, who said, how can Infusionsoft help me track the effectiveness of direct mail?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with Infusionsoft or Keep Max Classic particularly, there's something inside that software called Lead Source. And then you can also, for example, if someone was to, so firstly on your direct mail, you would have to have a unique call to action that you would be able to specifically know this person came from a direct mail piece, unless you're soliciting that information from them. So using a unique URL, like a vanity URL as an example, could be one way that you know, okay, this person found me and this URL was only printed on the direct mail, so therefore they found me from the direct mail, as an example. And then using the lead sourcing, what you can do, or the lead source field, what you can do is you can say, how many contacts did I actually get, and how many of those contacts then converted into a customer, and so what that would be worth to you. So let's say you spend, $100 to like mail things out, or whatever that looks like, the actual expenses towards it, then you could track the ROI. And there's actually a report right within Keep Max Classic that you can pull, that lives under the, if I don't make a mistake, I believe it's under the marketing settings. I believe it's marketing settings. We can take a look when we get into the application. So before I move forward, Grady, any other questions like that? Those were two good.
Yeah, one more. We'll slide in here. Mark said, how long in between each of these do you recommend? I always hate being too aggressive.
Yeah, so I would say anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. You're trying to get these touch points out, these 8 touch points within the first month of contact. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to keep following up with them, but keep in context of how we are following up with them. This isn't a sales process. So after the first 30 days, if you've tried to make contact with someone and you've tried all these different approaches within 2 to 4 weeks and you've just heard radio silence, what you're going to do with that person is you're going to move them to a nurture. That means you take your foot off the gas, because you're not going to keep deploying more human resources to that until that person bubbles back up to you. So you're really trying to have that high touch, personal, assisted sales approach. And then once you've gone through your 8 touch points, and you haven't heard a single thing from this person, then you can still use Keep to help you with the automated follow-ups in the nurture process. But those are going to be not as aggressive. Those are going to be more value and advanced content. Here, we're really trying to get in touch with someone, and that's the intention behind it. And so of these options, really, many of them, the emails, the tasks that we can create for ourselves to either direct mail or to DM them on social media. Let's say if we were able to find them on LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn is, I'm sure you guys all can relate. Your LinkedIn must be blowing up, because my LinkedIn is also blowing up with people wanting to connect into my network. And so I'm sure it's same as happening for you. You might not as easily be able to find people on Facebook as an example, but you're going to be more easily able to find them on LinkedIn. So these are some examples. And yes, the emailing components of this, we can use tools like Keep to help us with that. Any of the things that we want to make sure that at this point, we want to have a task to do X, we can use Keep to remind us to do that. So this is really where we're going to have that assistant remind us when we need to do things, but then we're also going to have our assistant do some of the things for us as well. Now, we've talked a little bit about just a brand new lead to making contact. That was the first piece. Now, here's the second piece that I want to share with you when it comes to sales metrics. So once you make contact, once you actually have the initial meeting with them, often referred to as a consultation call, a discovery call, whatever that is for you, but really that's you're trying to qualify and see if there's an opportunity to move forward. It takes an additional 7+ touch points to close the deal. So that's where I was saying it's not just 8 and done, it's 8 plus potentially another 7. So you're looking at somewhere maybe between 15 or 16 or 17 touch points. Now, 80% of sales requires follow-up conversations, especially the one call close is not as common as people tout it to be very frank. And so it's very normal for people to require follow-up conversations in order to make a decision. Now, if you're thinking, okay, 15 touch points, that's a lot of touch points. Let me share with you even some more concrete numbers. It took, in a study, it took 14 touch points in total to close a deal of under 10K. So I'm not talking about big deals. It still takes quite a few touch points to close a, let's say a $2,000 deal, a $5,000 deal, a $3,000 deal. These are relatively, these are not humongous deals. But comparatively, and when I say humongous, still 10,000 or less is still a lot of money. But what I want to draw the comparison to is it took 17.5 touch points to close deals over 100K. So what does this tell you about both things? It's you're still doing business with humans, and humans require a lot of touch points. So it doesn't really matter the price magnitude as much as you need to know that you need to be able to put in those 8 touch points pre-making contact. And then once you've made the contact, don't drop the ball, because people need 7+ touch points and usually multiple follow-up calls as well to close the deals. And so what that could look like in this case, so I've got another example, is if you have a meeting, and right, we predicated this on after the first meeting. So an amazing way that you can actually reach out to people after the meeting is done is you can send them a meeting summary. This is basically you just saying, this is what I heard you say. And people love to be heard. So a meeting summary is an excellent way to follow up, and it's personalized, and it really gives that personal approach. So definitely something to consider in your sales process if you're not already doing it. You can also send a thank you card. And then, as I mentioned, people need, 80% of sales need 5 follow-up conversations. So that's where you can start peppering in some of those follow-ups. You can have a follow-up call, then send an email or automate the email. Do you have any questions? Do another follow-up call, send an automated email. The value content is an email. So you can send an email. Maybe it's showing, a success story of a client. Maybe it's talking about some transformation that your product or service or offer was able to provide, and then another follow-up call as well. So these are some of the things that you can be thinking about in your sales process. But what this is showing you is that the sales process is usually not, as I said, a one and done, and usually there's a lot of touch points required. And so that's where we can really use tools like Keep in order to help us to really maximize our efforts that we're doing in sales. Now, when it comes to our sales process, here's the thing to consider first before you automate is you have to get clear on what your sales stages are. And so this might be different in your business, but I've just put an example here that can be applicable to a lot of service businesses. And so these stages, you can either use them and copy them exactly as I have them. You can remove stages, add stages. But here's the one thing that I would say is much beyond what I have here. I would not recommend doubling the number of sales stages that I've got on the screen to in your application, because that would tell me one of two things. Either you've maybe gone a little too micro, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get a pulse on where people are at in the sales cycle. So typically, to move someone from they are a fresh contact, you've never really spoken to them, so AKA they're a new lead or a new opportunity, all the way to won or lost, because we're trying to get a binary outcome of our opportunities. What might that look like for your business? And keep in mind that the sales process is not necessarily has to follow a sequential order. What that means is that you can have a new lead fill out a form. You can pick up the phone and call them. You can actually have a really good conversation with them. The conversation, which you had just intended to just get in touch with them, might actually be the discovery call because they have the time and you have the time. And so by the end of that call, you might get off the phone to say, okay, I'll send you the proposal. So what that might look like is you had someone come in as a new lead, and then you jump them to proposal sent and skip all the in between because all of that happened. But let's say you get a new lead, you call them, they don't pick up the phone, you leave them a voicemail, you call them back, they don't pick up the phone, you leave them another voicemail, you send them an email. So that's why you have the stages also broken out, because some people will go the little turtle route and go through every stage, but other people are going to be the hare and they're going to jump. So that's where, don't think of this as a linear process, but you're creating the opportunity for people to follow the steps that you can say typically happen, but people can also jump that process as well. And so this is the thing, this is the little bit of pre-work that you're going to want to think about if you don't already have a sales pipeline set up inside of your Keep software. What are your important sales stages? And even further to that, if you're not quite sure, that's where I would say just maybe copy these and then you can kind of rework them, but at least you'd have some of the back end automation set up and it'll get even more clear to you as well.
Yeah,
So
version 1 is better than version none is like my mantra.
100%. Our agency also, we just looked at our core values as an agency, and one of our core values is done beats perfect.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't get it to launch because they're just kind of like finessing it. People who are taking action are always going to be the ones who are coming out ahead, as opposed to people who are just the thinkers. I can't tell you how many good ideas we've all had, but those ideas have been actualized by the person who took action. So we want to be that person in 2021 moving forward forever and always, the action takers. So Grady, I believe I'm gonna move into automation now, talking more about the automation. Is there any questions before I move into the software?
No, I think everyone's excited to see stuff in action.
Okay, cool. Let me pop out of here. Okay, so I am right now in the Keep Max and Keep Pro software. So if you have this interface, I'm going to go through this in both ways, but the beauty is that the campaign builder is structurally the same. So that part is going to be the same. It's just the way it looks is a little bit different. So essentially, if you're in Keep Pro or Keep Max, the first thing is that you're going to come over to the pipeline on the left side. If you are in Keep, Grady, correct me if I'm wrong, Keep Grow doesn't have the pipeline, or it does?
Correct. It does not.
Okay, Keep Grow doesn't have the pipeline. So if this is something that you're watching this and you have Keep Grow, which is the CRM, and you want to have the pipeline again, just for visibility and tracking, like I'm mentioning, then potentially upgrading to Keep Pro would be the right next step for you. But let me show you what you can do inside the software. And so the first thing is that we need to have a pipeline actually set up. Now, this platform is using the card format. So you can see I have this one contact here, Renee, and I can essentially click and pull and drag and move this contact into the different stages. And that contact will remain in those stages. And what you're seeing here is that in the quote sent stage, there's one contact in here, and this is the one contact. Also, if I put a monetary value with this, which I would highly recommend doing when it comes to using a sales pipeline, if I wanted to estimate the revenue of this particular opportunity or this particular deal, let's just say as an example, it was 5,000. What you're seeing here is that in the quote sent stage, there is a total value of 5,000 because this particular one equals 5,000. But if I had more in here, I would see the individual value of those deals, but then also the total of all of them combined. And so again, this gives you some peace of mind when you're thinking about just visibility into your pipeline and some opportunities that you're working on, knowing what might be coming down the pipeline. The first step is just having a pulse on the business. And so I think that this is really important. And I think every business should be having a sales pipeline, especially when they have an assisted sales process. And so the first step, let's say you don't have a pipeline already built out. So what you would do is you can, let me delete these stages. So I'm not sure if I had not created this. Oh, because I have a deal inside. That's smart, that you can't delete a stage that has a deal inside. So I believe, Grady, correct me if I'm wrong. So if I had not already done the setup process that I did, I believe it comes preloaded with the sales pipeline, this one pipeline here, and then maybe one or two stages. So it gives you some starting stages. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
we made a couple of updates to make it a little more smoother. So the first time, if you guys haven't created a pipeline yet and you're in Keep Max or Pro, the first time you start with the pipeline now, it's like 2 weeks old, it'll ask you what kind of pipeline you want to make, a sales pipeline, a project or fulfillment pipeline, or a custom pipeline. And depending on what you choose, it'll feed you a couple of default stages.
Yeah, that's a great point, Grady, because we're talking in the form and in the context of making sales. So we're talking about making contact with a lead. We're talking about then moving them from actually connecting with them to closing them. but you 100% can use pipelines to also track the fulfillment side of things or custom things that might be specific in your business. And I would say that um, that's where Grady was mentioning that you can kind of have multiple pipelines. So I could have pipeline 2 here. And if I was to click on the sales pipeline, I would see the different stages that are appropriate to that pipeline and the people that are in it. And then if I was to click on pipeline 2, I would be able to see the respective information as well. And so when it comes to creating the sales pipeline stages, you can see it's pretty simple. All you're going to do is just think of those names. So for example, this would be my new lead. And then you can also move the order around by just grabbing the tile or the card and then just dragging it exactly where you want it to go. So we're just going to have new lead, contacting, engaging. I'm not going to build all the stages just to give you an idea of how it's working. So I've got a couple of stages here. Now, when it comes to automation, this is what I recommend. So in a particular stage, there's really 2 kinds of automation that you might want to have happen externally. Let me talk about that for a second. So when someone moves into contacting, meaning I have my Renee contact, let me move her back to the new lead stage. Okay. So Renee, new lead, is back at the new lead stage. So the way automation works is that when you move someone into another stage, and what that also means is that you're also closing the door on the other stage that they were previously in. But when they move into the stage, that's where automation can be triggered. So the 2 kinds of external automation that you might want to trigger if I moved Renee into contacting is I might want to trigger something right away, because let's say I move her into contacting, I want to send her an email saying like, hi, Renee, I'm just trying to get in touch with you. This is the number I have on file. Please let me know if there's a better number to reach you at and if there's a good time, tomorrow or the next day, as an example. That I might want to go out right away when I move Renee into contacting. The second type of automation that you might want in a stage is delayed, if something is taking time and the person is still there. So that's where you would start those automations by putting a delay timer of 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, whatever that looks like for your business. But you would say, wait 1 week, and the automation would then run if Renee is still in that stage. If she's moved out of the stage, then it stops. It never runs, but it's there for almost like a safety net, because if that person is still in the stage, it means something is not progressing forward. So those are the 2 types of external automations that you might want. Either something that triggers immediately when you move someone into a stage, i.e. you move someone into a 1 stage. Wouldn't that be so amazing to just send them like a welcome email, a thank you email, something to really show that appreciation. Whereas if you move somebody into quote sent, you might not want to send them an email right away. You might want to send them an email. Well, actually, I take that back. You might want to send them an email right away saying, hey, I've sent the quote, and then maybe a day or 2 later, follow up with them as an example. But another way that you can do it is you could start it by waiting 1 or 2 days and then saying, hey, do you have any questions? So really you can take these 2 different approaches. The second type of automation that you can think about is your internal automations, because all of this is going to the contact. They're getting your emails, they're getting your communications, or it's creating tasks for you to reach out to them. The second type of automation that you can put in these stages is internal, to kind of bubble something up to you. If something is taking a long time, the saying things are falling through the cracks is only because we don't have a pulse on it. So if you put an internal automation in all of your stages to say, notify me if someone has been in this stage for more than 2 weeks, as an example. So it's not going to send the contact an email, it's going to send you an email so that you can maybe, if you weren't having your eye on it, now you're going to put your eye on it and see what's going on here. And perhaps what needs to happen is you actually just needed to move that contact to another stage. Maybe stuff already happened. And that's also a safety net for you internally to say, oh, I just forgot to move this to the 1 stage, but I actually won it a week ago. I just didn't update it. Does that make sense? Hopefully so.
There's a couple of things that slid into the chat. I want to make sure I talk about. If you guys have questions, it's usually best to put them in Q&A, because you guys probably see those questions coming in the chat. I see about twice as many of those, as people don't go to all panels and all attendees. And so I'll try my best to make sure I don't miss anything. But one of the things I wanted to call out, because some people that are using Infusionsoft by Keep or Max Classic are seeing this thing going, this looks really cool. So if you are in that boat, we do have a new edition that came out called Max that is in this UI, and there's a way that you can try it out. So I put a link in the chat that if you want to, I did a webinar with my buddy, my name Matt, and we basically take you through the changes of someone who is in Infusionsoft or Max Classic and what it would look like if you change, and even give you a toggle that you can use for 30 days to try out the other edition and see if it's a good fit. So if you're seeing that kind of thing and like, oh, this looks really cool, after the session, click it now so you have it. And then after the session, go watch that one, check it out, and see if it's a good fit. Let me see if
Yeah.
there's any other ones I want to grab.
And while you
Yeah.
go through the questions, Grady, that actually is a perfect segue. So I'm going to switch using my toggle
Swanky,
keep,
swanky.
to keep Max Classic. And I just want to quickly show you guys. So this interface is a little bit different, but both are very powerful. So it's also a little bit about, there's some features in Max Classic that haven't quite yet come to Max. And so, if you have any questions, I think Grady's webinar that he was just mentioning that he did with Matt probably does a great job of kind of explaining those differences. So definitely take a look at that. When it comes to Keep Max Classic, aka the former Infusionsoft name, the way you set up pipeline is slightly different. I'm just going to quickly show you where to go, and then we're going to dive right into the automation so that I can make sure you guys all have sales pipeline automation for those internal and external things. I'm going to show you exactly how to set them up. So if you're in this platform, your stages lives under marketing, and you go to, no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. CRM settings. You can see I like to switch those two up a little bit. So CRM settings, and then under CRM settings, you're going to see sales settings. And then the second option down says sales pipeline. So this is where you will decide what your stages are. Essentially, when you're creating stages, if you don't have anything there, there's a couple of informational details that you'll need to do. So the same way that I was typing in and pressing save, this is where you type in the stage name and then you would press save. Now, every stage needs a name and every stage needs an order. Order just dictates in the drop down on opportunities which order do they show up in. So you can notice in mine, I have them in orders for the most part 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. The reason I recommend doing that rather than doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would also work, is that if you needed to slip in a stage, you would have to reorder all of them. So just by doing them in tens gives you the ability. Whereas in Keep Pro and Keep Max, we can just drag things around. In this interface, we have the ability to slide in another stage. So let's say I wanted to put a stage between the new opportunity and the contacting right here. If I made that stage anywhere from 11 to 19, that stage would go in exactly the spot that I want it to be. Now, those are the two things you must do. The target number of days and the probability are optional, just so you know. So if you're wondering what to do in those, target number of days is that when you're looking at the opportunity record, it doesn't affect the next action date or anything like that. It just has a little indication to tell you as the salesperson or as the rep, how many days ideally do we want someone in this stage? Is it 1 day? Is it 7 days and so forth? And so what happens is that if you said 1 day and the opportunity was created, in 2 days from now, when you go back to that opportunity, it'll be in red and it would say move by date. And so it's just more of a little indication to you, a heads up more than anything else. And then probability, if you're using, if you're again using opportunities specifically and you're using some of the revenue forecasting, what you can say is if this opportunity was worth $1,000, but I'm using a probability in my new lead stage of 10%, it's going to give you a weighted probability of $100. That's how much that deal right now with a weighted probability is going to be worth to you. If you're not sure what that is, you can see many of these stages have 0. This is also a sandbox application, but don't feel like you need to fill in target number of days or probability. So this is where you would actually go to set up the stages, and the opportunity records live under CRM opportunities. We can go down a huge rabbit hole there, so I'm not going to even open them up, but we do have other automation hours where we've gone into depth on opportunities. So Grady, kindly share those, and then the folks can take a look. So when it comes to automation now, automation behind the stages, that all lives inside of the campaign builder. And so if I go under the marketing and I go to campaign builder, this is in the Keep Max Classic UI. Or if I'm in Keep Pro or Keep Max, what I'm going to do to get to that builder is I'm going to go click on automations on the left side, just right above pipeline. And then I'm going to click on this plus button and I'm going to click on advanced automations, because this is where this is advanced. This is taking us to the builder. So this is either or you can use to get to the builder. And then once you're in the builder, what you're going to see is sequences and goals. And so if this is the first time you've ever seen the builder, very simply, the way all of these advanced automations are set up is with goals and sequences. Goals represent the if part of the logic. So we're saying if this contact moves into the sales stage, or if this contact fills out this form, if this contact clicks a link, if this happens, then the sequences represent then. The sequences are what house your emails, your text messages, your communications. All of that happens inside of this glorious little rectangle called a sequence. So on your campaign canvases, on this screen here, you're going to have a bunch of circles and rectangles, which represent the goals and the sequences, essentially. The if then logic. If this happens, then I want this email to happen. If this then happens, I want this email to happen, and so forth. And so I'm going to give you guys a shortcut when it comes to at least starting with your sales pipeline automation, and then we can spend some time with some questions. So Keep has a marketplace. I'm going to go ahead and actually give you the full link that I want you to go to first. So I'm going to type in sales pipeline. And I'm going to caveat by saying that this campaign has been around for a while and hasn't necessarily been 100% updated. So just use it as a starting point, and it's a fantastic starting point. And then you can customize as I'm going to show you. So I'm looking for this sales pipeline starter kit. And I'm going to throw that into the chat. And so what you're going to do is you can download this automation into Keep Max Classic or Keep Pro. You can download it into your application. And I just want you to see it structurally. You're still going to most likely want to change some things around, no problem, but it's just a good starting point. And so what you're going to do is you're going to just click on this big old install button, and then your application is going to show up. So let's pull the app. And then you're going to just go ahead and begin installing. Now, here's the one thing to note with Keep Max Classic users is that this will create stages for you. So just note that in the sales stages that we just looked at, where we were setting up our stages, new stages are going to come in there, if you already have some stuff in there. So you might want to potentially clean those up. The other thing too is that if you don't want to install it, I'm going to show you what it looks like. You can always build it. I just want to give as many shortcuts as possible so that you can get this as quickly up and running as possible to get those 8 touch points for the folks who you haven't made contact with, plus the 7 touch points that you need to make for the people who you've actually scheduled calls with. So if we look at our pipeline, this is what the automation looks like when you load it into the application. So it comes with some instructions. Now you'll see here, it's got some arrows, or these errors, almost these red ones. The reason it's saying this, just so you guys know, is because this particular feature, this campaign was designed for Keep Max Classic. So again, I just wanted to show you what it looks like. I'll show you very quickly how you can make your own. And so when you're looking here, it says opportunity definitions or stages. So this is where new opportunity, contacting, engaging, some of those stages we were just looking at. This is according to this canvas, what those things, this can kind of give you a little bit of an indication of what those things would mean. And so I'm going to start by deleting that because I don't need that. But what I just wanted to show you structurally is how these things are designed. So I'm actually going to even further simplify and bring just one out. I just want you to focus on this structure.
Yeah, because everything else is rinse and repeat from that up.
Everything precisely, Grady. And I'm trying to make it as clutterless as possible for you guys. Okay.
And so, one quick thing I want to highlight too is it was something that was thrown in chat. I want to make sure I don't forget about it because I forget everything.
Sure.
Is that when you are putting someone into a stage, you can automate. I should say, when you're moving someone into a stage, you can automate. If you create somebody in a stage, that won't trigger automation. So someone had asked like, hey, I have a process where they fill out a form, I add them to a stage, and then I want that stage to trigger an email, it won't trigger the email only when you move them to a stage. So if you want, like, hey, when I create a form, I want to put them in a stage, also automate the next step in that process. And then every other stage, we would do something like this for it.
Yeah, and I'll just really quickly show if it was the starting point, like Grady was just talking about, what you guys can do is where it requires a human being is moving from stage to stage, because you're having the conversations with the prospect, you're having those human one-on-one conversations, right? So you got to inform the system what's happening. The system is there to support you. The system is there to be your invisible assistant, sales assistant, to follow up, but you still have to inform the system, hey, this person is now moving into proposal sent, because you physically sent the proposal, or at least you triggered that to go out from another software, let's say. And so if you had a web form, let's say, that you wanted to create the opportunity in, this is just to create opportunity or deal. Inside of this process, inside of the sequence, like I was saying, if then, so when the form is filled out, the goal is the form has been filled out, then you can scroll down and you can see here that there's actually a create opportunity process or create deal. And so what you can do from here is you can actually indicate, so you can see here there's two. There's create opportunity for Infusionsoft by Infusionsoft Max Classic, and then there's create a deal for Infusionsoft Max and Infusionsoft Pro. Guys, I'm moving too fast. I'm moving too fast, and I'm just jumbling it and butchering it. So what I'm trying to say is create opportunity is specifically for Keep Max Classic, which is formerly Infusionsoft, and create a deal is for Keep Max and Keep Pro, which is the simplified UI that we were just looking at. So if we have create a deal, what I want you to see here is when you create the deal automatically, you can decide which stage does it go into. So you can say which sales pipeline and which starting stage does it go into. And so if you did this by creating the opportunity, then when the opportunity moves into the stage, you can have automation listening for opportunities moving into a new stage. Does that make sense? And so when they move into that new lead stage, that's where you can have, let's go back out. So I can have into, now all of these elements on the canvas, I just want you to see, if I was to click on them, they say, sorry, this doesn't support your version. Right here on the goals, in the second row, or really almost the last row, second to the last, there says pipeline stage or pipeline stage moved. That's what you're going to want to pull out onto the canvas and replace. So like I was saying, we're starting with an MVP, but we're just going to do some replacements here because we need the right elements. And you can see here that when you bring these elements out, you're using this little green arrow to connect them together. So now what that looks like is I want to have the starting piece be into new lead and the ending piece always to be an out of new lead. And so what that's going to mean for you is that when a contact moves into the new lead stage, which we're going to set up here, all we need to do is we need to say when moving into or out of. So our two options. So it's always going to be into at the beginning, always out of at the end. Into sales pipeline, new lead stage, save. And out of sales pipeline, new lead stage. And like Grady was saying, rinse and repeat. So you can actually just, let me delete some of these stuff that came in. What you can do is you can just have one of these little goal sequence goal for each stage that you have in your particular pipeline. And so then this one would be into contacting, and this would be out of contacting. And so it's not going to take, as you can see, much time to set this up. And this would be our contacting follow up. This would be our new lead follow up. And so what we're doing here is we're saying into, and we're just moving that to the contacting stage instead. And we're saying this one is going to be out of, and this is going to be the contacting stage. So this is what you're going to have, this exact format structure for all of your stages. Within each one of these, when you move the contact either from the drop down inside of Keep Max Classic into the new lead stage, or you move them inside of the Keep Max or the Keep Pro, you just drag the Renee contact into stages, that is what the goal is looking for. It's looking to see, has someone moved into that particular stage? And so as soon as you do that, that's where this goal is fired, let's say for the new lead stage, and the contact moves into this sequence right here, the new lead follow-up. What would then happen is anything you've designed onto the campaign canvas. So that's where I was saying you could have either an email go out right away. This could be an external email, or you could go ahead and put this with a delay in front of it to say wait certain days and then have the email go out. So depending on what the process is, sometimes you're going to want to follow up right away, whereas other times you're going to want to wait. And then I was also mentioning about an internal process as well. So similarly, how this email is going external, I could also have an internal process here for myself where I say wait, for example, let's just say 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I want to send this email. Now, here's the tip. This email by default is going to go to the contact because it's a contact that's moving through the automation, right? So if you want this email to come to you, you have to open this email up. And then from the email, I'm just going to go ahead and select any old email template. From the email, here's the key is you must change the to going to email, which is the contact's email. And then you're going to go ahead and select other, and then you're going to send it to yourself instead. So this would be, as an example, my email here. And go ahead and save that. That means that when the contact has been in this stage for 2 weeks, you are going to get the email, but it's regarding the contact as opposed to them getting an email saying, hey, John has been in this. That wouldn't mean anything to him, basically. So this is the kind of automation that you can put in every single one of your stages. You can have external communications that either, as I said, go out right away. And then you can have this internal mechanism down here to just bubble things up to you when things are taking a little bit too long, or at least to give you a pulse on what's going on. So that's a wrap. I know we covered a lot of content. We got about a few minutes left for questions. Grady, fire them away at me.
All right. We got 3 I want to make sure we tackle since they were asked before the end here. Of course, marks that we talked about earlier. In Classic, is there a way to use ops to build a pipeline that also tracks dollars in the funnel?
So let me, I'm going to show that visually. Next question.
Also, Steve asked, many of our clients are startup companies. And so it's kind of like, I got to wait for them to get funded and they got to go through that process. I want to make sure that I'm staying in touch with them until that happens, because sometimes it takes a while, but I also don't want to be obnoxious.
So I think if you know your sales process and it's a little bit of a longer sales process, the number one thing I would recommend is, rather than just saying like the, hey, just following up emails, which is basically like, hey, don't break up with me emails. Think about how you can add some more value to those emails. Maybe it's an article, maybe it's a video, but how could you potentially try and build the relationship with that person? Because genuinely, they're most likely going to make the decision, and so they're going to go with you or somebody else. And so you're just trying to be that ally and that trusted advisor. So giving them content is a great way of keeping in touch without being like, hey, are you ready to move forward yet? Like, you can ask that question, but it's education first.
Yeah, I think about like real estate and how like a real estate agent or a broker would maybe send emails about how to increase your credit score.
Absolutely.
They're not credit repair people, but they know that a good credit score makes it easier to close the deal. If you give them ideas of how to make sure you get funding closed, your VC funding closed, cool. Once they get it, now they're a good prospect.
Absolutely. To quickly answer Mark's question, so there's 2 ways that you can start to actually track some revenue dollars. Either you can use the projected high and low revenue, which you can run some reports on, or if you actually create products inside of your Keep Max Classic software, what you can do on the opportunity record is you can go ahead under the products and subscriptions tab. You can add the product to the particular opportunity. So you can see here at the top, Gregory House, he has $100, because if I look at the products and subscriptions tab, I've got something here that's as a product, and I've also got a subscription that's $100. So you can see here that he's got a one-time value of $100 plus $100 a month. And then under the CRM reports, there are a ton of reports here including some revenue forecasting reports that you can pull as well. And if you have any follow-up questions on that, you can connect with me directly.
Yeah, in fact, let me go ahead and add this. Somebody asked directly how to reach out to you, Renee. I'm just going
Okay.
to share it with everybody so they have it. This is Renee's website. I'm putting in the chat right now. If you want to meet with Renee, get more questions from her, or you feel like she's a good person, maybe just help you take some of this off your plate, reach out to her, ask her for help. And then I'm also going to put in the chat this link here, Renee, if you want to talk about what this one is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a free private Facebook group where I am there to answer questions, there to also facilitate some community of like-minded entrepreneurs. We have some challenges that we run in there. I do some trainings in there as well. So I have a challenge that I'm thinking about around sales pipeline. So definitely a place to check out, especially into February. I'll formally announce the next challenge, but I know there's many folks who are on today's session who have joined the past challenge. We ran a 12-day challenge in February. What am I saying? In December, and it was awesome. So I would love to have you guys there as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate whenever you come and join us. And some of you might be thinking, okay, I know I want to automate emails, but what the heck do I say in these emails? Come join us on Thursday. Thursday, we'll be talking about email copy that converts. So if you do some work today or on Wednesday, put the pieces in place and then come join us on Thursday and we'll teach you what to put inside. So again, thank you guys for joining us. We're glad you're here and we'll see you again on Thursday, hopefully. Bye, Renee.